Of all the ways God marks those he calls, perhaps none is more misunderstood than the trials we face. When you are marked by God, your life will not always be easy. In fact, it often seems like the very opposite. You will walk through seasons of struggle so fierce that you begin to wonder if God has abandoned you altogether. But hear me now, those trials are not a sign that you are forgotten. They are evidence that you are chosen. Some of you know exactly what I mean. You've prayed for open doors, but all you've seen is one door after another slammed shut. You've asked for provision, and yet it seems like your resources have only dried up. You've sought peace, but your heart has been troubled and heavy. And you're sitting there asking, Lord, why me? Why is this so hard? But let me tell you this, God never wastes pain. When God has marked you, he will allow certain trials to come into your life, not to break you, but to build you. He's not punishing you. He's preparing you. He's refining you for what's ahead. Look at the lives of those whom God used mightily throughout Scripture. Joseph was marked by God, yet he was thrown into a pit by his brothers, sold into slavery, falsely accused, and imprisoned. Why? Because God was positioning him for a place of influence in Egypt. Moses was marked by God, but before he led the Israelites out of Egypt, he spent 40 years in the wilderness tending sheep, feeling forgotten and insignificant. Why? Because God was preparing him to lead a nation. David was anointed as king, but he spent years running for his life, hiding in caves from Saul. Why? Because God was shaping him into the man who would shepherd his people. The trials were never proof that God had left them. The trials were proof that God's hand was on them. Maybe you're in a pit like Joseph and you're wondering why your dreams seem so far away. Maybe you're in a wilderness like Moses, feeling like your life is at a standstill. Maybe you're in a cave like David, hiding from the attacks of the enemy. You're marked by God. That's why the enemy is fighting you so hard. That's why the opposition is so intense. That's why the road has been so rough. You've been marked for something greater. And let me tell you this, Satan doesn't waste his time attacking people who aren't a threat. The intensity of your trial is often a reflection of the weight of your calling. If the enemy has come after you with everything he's got, it's because he sees what God is doing in you. He knows you're dangerous to his kingdom. He sees the anointing on your life. But don't you dare give up. God is using every trial to equip you for your purpose. He's teaching you how to stand when everything around you is falling. He's teaching you how to pray when there's no way out. He's teaching you how to trust when nothing makes sense. Some of you are walking through fire right now, and it's painful. But remember this, the fire refines gold. The heat brings out the impurities. When you're marked by God, the fire is not meant to destroy you. It's meant to purify you. It's preparing you for what's next. And when the trial has done its work, you'll look back and realize every setback was a setup. Every disappointment was divine positioning. Every closed door was God's redirection. You'll see that he was with you all along. When others left, he stayed. When you were broken, he held you together. When you thought it was over, he made a way. So if you're walking through trials today, don't despise them. Don't let the enemy convince you that God has forgotten you. Those trials are the mark of his hand on your life. He's shaping you into the person he's called you to be. You are not forgotten. You are being prepared. You are being refined. You are marked by God. There are moments in life when you look back and realize you should not have made it. You should not be standing here today. There were dangers that could have taken you out. There were accidents that could have claimed your life. There were sicknesses that could have destroyed you. There were people who plotted against you, hoping you would fall. And yet here you are. Somehow you made it through. It wasn't luck. It wasn't chance. It was the hand of God upon you. When you are marked by God, his protection surrounds you in ways you often can't see until you've come through the other side. Some of you know exactly what I'm talking about. You've had those moments, those close calls where you say, if God hadn't stepped in, I wouldn't be here. You were driving down the road, in an instant, a crash was avoided, and you knew God's hand was there. You went into that surgery, and the doctors were unsure, but you came out stronger, and you knew God's hand was there. You faced that diagnosis, and the fear tried to grip your heart, but somehow healing came, and you knew God's hand was there. It is no accident. When God has marked you, his protection becomes your covering. You may not always see it, but you will know it when you look back. Think about it. How many times have you faced something that should have ended you, but it didn't? How many times did the enemy try to take you out early, but he failed? That's because God had his hand on you. You were marked before you even knew it. You see, when God has a calling on your life, the enemy will try everything he can to stop you. He will set traps. He will send storms. He will stir up people against you. He will whisper fear into your heart. He will try to break you before you ever step into your assignment. But what the enemy cannot stand is the hand of God that covers those he has chosen. The enemy can plot, but God protects. The enemy can roar, but God secures. The enemy can strike, but God defends. Some of you have been through things that should have destroyed you. You should have been crushed by that season of depression. You should have drowned in that financial crisis. You should have been consumed by that addiction. You should have lost your mind when that relationship fell apart, but you didn't. Do you know why? Because God had already marked you. His plan for your life was too great to let you fall. His purpose for you was too important to let the enemy win. His promise over you was too powerful to let you be defeated. You see, when God marks you, he places a hedge around you that the enemy cannot penetrate. Oh, the devil may try. He may come close. He may roar loudly. He may even touch certain areas of your life. But he cannot destroy you because God has drawn a line, and that line says, this one is mine. Just like he marked Job, he has marked you. The enemy asked to destroy Job, but God said you can touch some things, but you cannot take his life. That same hand is over you. That same voice speaks on your behalf. I've seen it. I've seen lives that should have ended, but God said, not yet. I've seen people walk through valleys that should have swallowed them whole, but God said, keep walking. I've seen hearts that were shattered into pieces, but God picked up every fragment and said, I will restore. And if you can hear this today, it's because God's hand has been on you too. You may not see it, but you are here because he has kept you. You are breathing because he has sustained you. You have a future because he has preserved you. You are not here by accident. Every time the enemy tried, God blocked him. Every time the storm rose, God spoke to it. Every time the battle raged, God fought for you. That is the mark of his hand. That is the evidence that you are chosen. That is the sign that you are marked by God. There comes a time in a person's life when something begins to stir deep within their soul. It's not something you can explain to those around you, and it's not something you even fully understand yourself. All you know is that you can't shake it. It's there when you wake up in the morning, and it's there when you lay your head down at night. It's like a gentle whisper in your heart, calling you to something more, something higher. That stirring is not your imagination. That restlessness is not something to ignore. That is the voice of God calling you. That is the hand of God marking you. When you are marked by God, he will place a calling on your life that will not let you settle. You may try to ignore it. You may try to run from it. You may tell yourself it's not for you. But when God has placed his mark on you, that calling will follow you wherever you go. Some of you know exactly what I'm talking about. You've tried to fit in with the crowd, but you never could. You've tried to live life your way, but it always left you empty. You've tried to drown out the voice, but it only grew louder. That's because you are not ordinary. You are chosen. You are marked by God for something greater. And when God is calling you, nothing else will satisfy you. You can chase success, but it will feel empty. You can build a life that looks perfect on the outside, but inside you'll feel unfulfilled. You can surround yourself with people, but there will still be a loneliness that nothing can fill. That is because your soul was made for something eternal. Your heart was designed to respond to his voice. That inner calling is the sign that you were created for a divine purpose. It's the evidence that God's hand is upon you. When you are marked by God, he won't let you drift through life aimlessly. He will draw you back to himself. He will remind you over and over that you were made for more. Some of you have felt that pull since you were young. Even before you fully knew God, you sensed that you were different. You felt a weight on your heart like there was something you were supposed to do. And as you grew older, that feeling never left. It only grew stronger. Others of you may have only begun to feel it recently. You've been going through life and all of a sudden you feel unsettled. The things that used to satisfy you no longer do. The plans you made for yourself no longer excite you. There's a stirring inside you that you can't ignore. That is God calling you. That is God reminding you that you are marked. He is awakening something in you that He placed there long ago. He is drawing you into your purpose. And when you respond to that calling, everything begins to change. You may not know every step, but you know you can't stay where you are. You may not see the whole picture, but you know you have to follow. And when you say yes to that call, you step into life you're created for. But hear me saying yes to God's call will not always be easy. It will require you to leave some things behind. It will require you to walk away from comfort and step into the unknown. It will require you to trust God when you can't see the outcome, but it will be worth it. Because when you walk in your calling, you walk in His presence. When you step into your purpose, you experience His power. When you follow His voice, you find the peace your soul has been longing for. Some of you have been feeling that call, but you've been afraid. You've been holding back. You've been waiting for the right time, but God is saying, now is the time. Follow me, you're marked. You are chosen. You are called. Don't ignore that stirring. Don't silence that voice. Don't miss what God has for you. He is calling you because He has a purpose for you. He is stirring you because He is ready to use you. You are not here by accident. You are here because you are marked by God. There are moments in life when doors open that you know you didn't unlock. Opportunities come your way that you know you didn't create. People step in to help you when you know you couldn't have arranged it. And deep down, you realize this is not my doing. This is God. When you are marked by God, you begin to experience favor that cannot be explained. It's not because you are the most qualified. It's not because you are the most talented. It's not because you have the best connections. It's because God has placed His hand upon you. And when God marks you, He will open doors that no man can shut. He will put you in positions you never thought you'd be in. He will cause people to see something in you that you didn't even see in yourself. Some of you know exactly what I'm talking about. You've looked back at moments in your life and thought, how did that happen? How did I get there? I shouldn't have even been considered. I didn't have what it took. But somehow I was chosen. That was not luck. That was the favor of God. That was His mark on your life. When God has a purpose for you, He will orchestrate circumstances to position you exactly where you need to be. Even when it looks like things are falling apart, He's actually putting everything together. Even when it seems like you've been overlooked, He's preparing a place with your name on it. Some of you have had doors closed recently and you've been discouraged. You thought that was your chance. You thought that was your moment. But God is saying that was not the door I have for you. I closed it because I'm about to open something better. I'm about to take you somewhere you never imagined. You see, when God marks you, your life is not left to chance. Your steps are ordered. He goes before you. He prepares the way. And when the time is right, He opens doors that no one can block. You won't have to force it. You won't have to beg for it. You won't have to manipulate it. It will come to you because God has set it aside for you. I've seen it time and time again. People who thought they were finished, God opened a new door. People who thought they had missed their chance, God brought an opportunity better than anything they had lost. People who thought they weren't good enough, God made a way. And suddenly they were standing in places they never thought they'd be. That is the hand of God. That is what happens when you are marked by Him. He doesn't need the approval of others to bless you. He doesn't need the system to favor you. He doesn't need you to have every qualification. When He decides to lift you up, nothing can hold you down. Some of you have been striving. You've been trying to make things happen in your own strength. You've been pushing and pulling, knocking on doors that won't open, trying to prove yourself to people who keep overlooking you. But God is saying, stop striving, rest in me. Trust my timing. When I open the door, you won't have to force it. You'll walk through it with peace. When you are marked by God, favor will find you. Blessings will chase you down. You won't have to chase opportunities. Opportunities will come to you. You'll be in the right place at the right time, and you'll know this is the hand of God. But hear this, when the door opens, it's not for your glory. It's not so you can boast about what you've done. It's so you can point to Him and say, look what the Lord has done. When God lifts you up, it's so you can lift Him up. When He blesses you, it's so you can be a blessing to others. Some of you are on the verge of that open door. You can feel it. You sense that something is shifting. God is preparing you. He's positioning you. He's working behind the scenes. Don't lose heart. Don't give up. Your moment is coming. The door will open. The favor will flow. The opportunity will arrive. And when it does, you'll know this is the mark of God. You are chosen. You are called. You are marked by God. There are times in your life when you feel a weight on your heart that you can't ignore. It's not the kind of weight that crushes you. It's the kind that stirs you, that moves you, that makes you look at the world differently. You begin to see the pain around you, and it's like you can't turn away. You hear about suffering, and it doesn't just pass through your ears, it grips your soul. You see the brokenness in someone's eyes, and it's as if God himself is showing you their hurt. That is not by accident. That is not just emotion. That is the hand of God pressing a burden upon your heart. When you are marked by God, he gives you a burden for what burdens him. You begin to feel his heart for the lost, for the hurting, for those who are far from him. You begin to see people the way he sees them. You can't walk past the broken and pretend you didn't see them. You can't hear about injustice and simply shrug it off. You can't witness someone bound by sin and not feel the ache of their need for salvation. Some of you know what I'm talking about. You've felt it. You've been in your home and a name will come to your mind out of nowhere and you can't shake it. You find yourself praying for someone you haven't thought about in years. That's not random. That's the Spirit of God moving in you. That's the mark of God upon you. Others of you, you've been sitting in a service, and as you listened to a message, tears began to fall, and you didn't even know why. Your heart was broken for people you'd never even met. That's not just emotion. That's God stirring your spirit. That's him placing his burden on you. And when God places that kind of burden on you, it's not meant to weigh you down. It's meant to lift you into your purpose. That burden is a sign that you are called. That burden is a signal that God is getting ready to use you. That burden is evidence that you are marked by God. Some of you have been wondering, why do I feel so deeply? Why do I care so much about people who don't even know me? Why do I cry over situations that don't affect me personally? It's because you are set apart. You are chosen. You are called to intercede. You are called to stand in the gap. You are called to be a light in dark places. That burden is God inviting you to partner with him. He's showing you what matters to him because he's getting ready to use you to make a difference. That burden is not something to ignore. It's not something to push aside. That burden is holy. That burden is sacred. When you are marked by God, you cannot live for yourself alone. You cannot spend your days only thinking about your own comfort, your own success, your own dreams. When you are marked by God, he will break your heart for what breaks his. He will open your eyes to see those who are overlooked. He will cause you to hear the cries of those who have been silenced. He will stir you until you can no longer stand still. And when you feel that burden, don't run from it. Don't harden your heart. Don't say someone else will do it. That burden is your assignment. That burden is your calling. That burden is the sign that God is saying, I choose you. Some of you are feeling it right now. You've been feeling it for weeks, for months, maybe even for years. You've tried to brush it aside, but it keeps coming back. You've told yourself it's not your problem, but your heart won't let it go. That's because God is speaking to you. That's because he's marked you. And when you step into that burden, when you say, yes, Lord, use me, you will discover joy like you've never known. You will see lives changed. You will see chains broken. You will see hope restored. And you will know that you are walking in what you were created for. So if you feel that burden today, don't run, don't push it away. Lean into it. Embrace it. It's not there to break you. It's there to lead you into your purpose. It's there because you are marked by God. There are moments in your journey when you begin to notice something you can't explain. It's not the open doors or the favor you've seen, that's part of it, but this is something different. This is something deeper. You start to realize that when you speak, something happens. When you pray, things begin to shift. When you step into a room, the atmosphere changes. It's not because of you, it's because of the one who is with you. It's because you are marked by God. When God marks you, his power begins to work through you in ways you can't always see, but others will see it. People will begin to say, there's something different about you. I don't know what it is, but I can feel it. They may not know how to describe it, but they sense it. It's the presence of God. It's his spirit resting on you. Some of you have experienced this without even realizing it. You walked into situations where there was tension, and the moment you stepped in, peace followed. You didn't say anything special, you were just there, but God was with you. You've had people come to you and say, I don't know why, but I feel like I can talk to you. They open their heart to you because they sense the love of God in you. That's not ordinary. That's the mark of God. When you are marked by God, you carry his power not because you are perfect, not because you have it all together, but because he has chosen to place his Spirit upon you. And when his Spirit is upon you, you will see things happen that you can't explain. Prayers you thought were simple will produce miracles. Words you thought were ordinary will heal a broken heart. A hand on someone's shoulder offered in love will bring comfort you never could have given on your own. That's not human ability. That's the power of God working through a marked life. Some of you have wondered, why do people come to me with their problems? Why do they ask me to pray when I feel like I'm the one who needs prayer? It's because they see what you can't always see. They see that you are marked. They sense that God is with you. When you are marked by God, you will find yourself in places where people are hurting, where there is darkness, where there is need. And you will be the light. You will be the one God uses to bring hope. You will be the one through whom God moves. But understand this, his power is not given so you can build your name. His power is not placed on you so you can be admired. His power is given so that his name is glorified. His power rests on you so that the world may see him. When you are marked by God, your life becomes a vessel through which his glory is revealed. That's why you feel different. That's why you can't live like everyone else. That's why the weight of his calling sometimes feels heavy, because you are carrying something sacred. Some of you have felt that power, but you've been afraid of it. You've sensed God stirring you to pray for someone, but you held back. You felt the urge to speak a word of encouragement, but you hesitated. You knew you were supposed to step out, but you doubted yourself. That hesitation is normal. But hear this, when God marks you, he will equip you. He will not call you to something without giving you what you need. The power is not from you, it's from him. You don't have to be strong. You just have to be willing. When you are marked by God, you will do things you never thought you could do. You will speak with boldness you never thought you had. You will pray prayers that shake the heavens. You will lay hands on the sick and they will recover. You will speak life into the broken and they will be restored. Not because you are special, but because the God who called you is powerful. Some of you are at the edge of that power right now. You feel it rising within you, but you've been holding back. This is your moment. God is saying, I have marked you. I have placed my Spirit upon you. Step out. Trust me. I will fill your mouth. I will strengthen your hands. I will work through you. You are not ordinary. You are chosen. You are set apart. You are anointed. You are marked by God.